Hey everyone, it's me, Rai, and in this video I'm going to be talking about what is watercolor paint. Well, first off, watercolor, as it says, has a lot of water in it, but you'll usually be adding the water to your paint. But the paint comes in tubes and pans, which I'll cover more in another video. But at its core, all paint is a pigment and a binder. This is pigment. Look how beautiful it is. This is me holding it in front of an oil painting. The vibrant blue you get in oil paintings. You get that same vibrant blue in watercolor because it's the same pigment. Here's it next to a watercolor. As you can see, it's just so saturated and beautiful. It's the same pigment in oil paint and acrylic paint that's in watercolor. And what makes it different then? What makes watercolor different than oil paint or acrylic paint? Well, paint is basically, at its core, two ingredients, a pigment and a binder. Here's that pigment again. It's beautiful. It's very ground down to very fine particles. It's very dusty though, so we need to make it into a form that it'll stick onto the surface, whether it's oil paint on canvas or acrylic on wood, or in our case, watercolor paint onto paper. How are we going to get it to stick? For oil paint, the oils are derived from flax seeds. So these are what flax seeds look like. You've probably seen them at the health store. You've probably eaten some before. When you get the oil from flaxseed, you get linseed oil. And this oil, as you can see, is very warm in color. It's kind of like an orangey yellow. You could refine the linseed oil to a point they manufacture it so that it's even more clear. But this is it in its cold pressed form, they call it. And it's very runny and it's pretty much just an oil. You know what oil looks like. It's very greasy. It's kind of watery, but it's a little more viscosity to it. So it's a little thicker than water. But yeah, you'll see it kind of seep into the paper. It's going to start getting it all greasy. But if you mix the pigment with this oil, you have oil paint. For acrylic paint, this is just an acrylic medium I'm using to represent acrylic. But you put out this liquid acrylic and you mix it with your pigment and you got acrylic paint. The linseed oil will hold the pigment together for oil paint. The polymer acrylic will hold it together for acrylic paint. And this little nugget right here, this is gum arabic from the acacia tree. It's sap. And when I wet my finger and I touch it, it's sticky. So gum arabic is the binder for watercolor. So it's pigment and then it's gum arabic. This is what it looks like in its hydrated form as a liquid. Gum arabic, it's not as thick as the acrylic, but it's a little bit more gooey than the oil. It's very sticky. I'd feel like it's almost like a honey consistency. So linseed oil is oil paint, acrylic polymer is acrylic paint, and gum arabic makes watercolor. When you mix the two together, you're going to get something pretty much close to what's in this tube, which is a tubed watercolor. You can notice the pigment got even darker because it is being bound together by the gum arabic. The pigment is also now wet, so it's going to show up a little bit darker out of the tube, almost black, right? Then when you melt it with some water on your brush, there you have it, your watercolor. What's really unique about watercolor is that oil paint and acrylic paint, once it's dry, you can't rework it. You can only paint on top of it. You can't wet it again. With watercolor, you could keep adding water to your paint that is dry, and your painting, you can kind of keep working it. Watercolor paint not only has pigment and gum arabic, sometimes or often it also has glycerin. Glycerin is a sugar alcohol that can be derived from either animal fats or vegetable fats, or it could also be produced synthetically as well. But we know it as a moisturizer, right? So you could actually get it at a pharmacy, and you'll see me here adding some gum arabic and then a tiny bit of glycerin into the pigment to create a little bit of watercolor. Some paint manufacturers will use honey as well in their watercolor. Honey is also a way of kind of moisturizing the paint so that when it dries, it's not going to be basically so rigid or kind of start to crumble and crack, which I'll show later in another video when I talk about the benefits of using pans versus tube watercolor or vice versa. If you were to let paint you squeezed out of the tube on your palette dry, it'll kind of tend to crack, and the glycerin will kind of help that out. Watercolor pans, which I'll show in that other video as well, they need a little bit of glycerin or some kind of moisturizer in that way so that they're not completely dry for so long, and you can kind of easily rehydrate them and paint with them. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure you comment or subscribe. If you're watching this at Rai Paints, please follow my YouTube channel.